What's up, guys? Welcome back to DCA. So I know I've been gone for about a month and a half now, and I just want to start by telling everyone that that is in no way an indication that I'm not going to be making videos in the future. In fact, the reason, or the primary reason, there have been a few others, but the primary reason that I haven't been making videos is because I've actually been working extensively on the website that we're going to be releasing. So we're actually going to go live with the website this week. There's already a beta test out there. If you guys are interested, you could head over to the Discord channel. You can sign up for that right now. But we will be going live this week, and I've been doing a ton of work on that, and I think you guys are really going to like it once we get it out there. So, mostly the reason that I've been gone is because that has eaten up a ton of my time. And, given all of my other, just the things that I enjoy doing in my life, I don't have time to work on that for, how many ever hours a day and make videos and edit them, post them. So I've been focusing on that. And in addition to that, basically nothing has happened with the price action until this last week or two. And I was in Italy during that time. So I couldn't make a video, when that all started happening anyways. And as I always say, I'm not going to make videos just to make videos. When the price is grinding to the side and doing nothing but that, and nothing is interesting happening on chain, nothing is interesting happening with the metrics, all the data that we have isn't really telling us anything. I'm not going to make videos just to make videos, just to get clicks and views. So there really wasn't a lot that I felt like I needed to urgently come on and talk to you guys about. But the website is nearing its at least its first stages of completion. We're going to continue to build on that as we go forward. And when I say we, I'm talking about me and the guys at Upside Down Data. If you haven't checked them out before, I would highly suggest you head over there and take a look at them, because I really think that they're putting out some of the best metrics out of anyone in this space. I also want to wish everyone happy holidays, belated, and belated happy New Year's. I hope everyone had a great time. And with that said, guys, let's just get right back into it. So what I wanted to take a look at today is something pretty interesting, because if you rewind back here to November, so the November of 2022, we were looking at this logarithmic regression curve that we have. And we were saying that, well, based on all the data that we have from the past, this lower band of the log regression curve has held in the past. Now, there have been times when we've went slightly below it, but in general, this lower band has held in the past. And if you recall what these bands are, they're not just simple reflections of the price. The lower band here is actually the realized price band. And we've talked about why the realized price is such an important metric for the price of Bitcoin, and for that matter, the price of the cryptocurrency market in general. Remember, the reason that we do all the analysis, when you're looking at this analysis, we do so much of it on Bitcoin. And yes, it's applicable to Bitcoin, but more importantly, and in fact, much more importantly, it's applicable to the entire cryptocurrency space. That's why we look at Bitcoin, because it has the most data, and in addition to that, it has the most metrics. It has the best on-chain support. You can't get more on-chain data than you can for Bitcoin. And that matters because Bitcoin is essentially the weather vane for all of these assets. So we're analyzing Bitcoin, but indirectly, we're also analyzing all of these other altcoins. Now, there have been a slew of developments regarding government regulation that could be coming down the pipeline. And that's the kind of thing where, quite frankly, we don't have any control over it. And it's very difficult to do proper analysis on that type of thing, especially when we don't know what it's going to look like, what it's going to impact. I mean, obviously, your centralized altcoins are going to be the primary targets. But when we have all of these unknowns, doing any sort of proper analysis becomes very difficult in that regard. So we look at Bitcoin and we look at all of the economic factors that influence Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is our weather vane for this entire market. So back to what we're talking about. We said that this realized price lower band here, right? This has held the sort of the bottom level of the market in each cycle. Now we have these wicks, and we've come down in this cycle. We actually didn't even get down to the bottom band, but we got very, very close to it. And then with the COVID capitulation event, we actually went a bit below it. Now that brings us to this cycle. And what you find is something very interesting. When we look at our logarithmic regression band, and this isn't changed, we haven't changed anything. This is the same band that we put out almost a year and a half ago, or however long ago it was at this point. And you'll see that we actually came down, and we did have multiple closes below this band. But what we can do here is we'll add this, okay? So we just added this metric down here, and this is basically just showing us where was the price with relation to that lower band, all right? And a couple interesting things present themselves. So let's start by adding a horizontal line here, and we're just gonna add it right at 1. Now, what does 1 mean? And all that means is that the price equals this lower band. And you'll see that in each cycle, and remember, we're looking at closing data here, okay? We're looking at closing data, and we'll just hide these guys. You'll see that in each cycle, the price comes down and gets very, very close to this lower band. And that's for the fact that we've, as we've discussed before, this lower band sort of for the realized price is a strong indication that you've kind of exhausted all of your sellers. There just simply aren't many people left to sell. And the people that are left are your long-term holders. So seeing us drop below that realized price band of the long-term holders would suggest, or would highly suggest, that even those people are losing conviction in the asset, right? So we saw that we came down and we actually held this level, right? Because the blue indicates the price in relation to that lower band. So when it's at 1, that means it's equal to the lower band. Now we did drop below, and when it dropped below, I got a few messages in my Discord, people saying, hey, we need to reconsider this lower band. We're dropping below it. But if we really look at this, we got down to around here, around 0.97 is where we got to. So the price never dropped more than 3% below that lower band. I think the price coming down and getting to within 3% of that lower band, I think that indicates that more or less this logarithmic regression curve has essentially done its job. Now, we don't know that this was the bottom, and I'm not going to sit here right now and tell you that it was, because quite frankly, there are a lot of things that can still happen in this market that could send us tanking below this level. And in that case, yes, the logarithmic regression curve, it's been violated, and we can no longer kind of say that this is a strong indication that we're at or near the bottom. So I just wanted to bring this up because, I was getting those messages, people saying that, hey, this metric, it's no longer valid because we've dropped below it. Overall, I say that as long as, we don't go significantly below this level again, I think that this metric has so far anyway, and believing that we're definitively at the bottom because we've broken this downtrend that we've been in ever since back here in November of 2021, thinking that we are definitively at the bottom right now, I think that you're kind of setting yourself up. But there is room for optimism, okay? And, you haven't heard a lot of optimistic talk out of me in the last year. If you've been watching DCA, you've been a masochist, because since November, since November or December of 2021, I have had a highly bearish tone in every single video. And I still am bearish. I think there's a lot of things going on in the market that sort of suggest to me that we still have a lot of downside risk, a lot of macroeconomic factors, and a lot of factors within the cryptocurrency market itself. So I'm not sitting here ringing the victory bell, but for one of the first times, you're hearing a little bit of optimism out of me. And I think that's primarily for the fact that, right now we are seeing some things such as what I'm showing you right here that kind of suggest that, hey, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but potentially this actually was us holding the bottom of this regression band, and the regression band is going to sort of indicate the bottom like it has in the past. Okay, so with that said, let's take a look at another interesting trend here. So I'm going to bring up that same metric that I just showed, which is showing the price with relation to that lower band. And just to explain this a bit further, when it's at 1, that means it's equal to the lower regression band, and when it's up here, that means it's much higher. So in this case, it's 71 times, or where is it exactly? It's about 75 to 80 times higher than the lower regression band. Okay, and then in the next cycle, it's about 41 to 42 times higher than the lower band, right? Then we get all the way down to around 17. And then in this cycle, we got down to around 8.5. So 8.5x higher than the lower regression band. And let's just verify that here. So what exactly are we saying? Well, right here, right around here, when we were at 8.5x, okay, so the price was at around 64K, and the lower band was at around 8K. So 8.1K. So that's around 8x from the lower regression band. So what does that tell us right now? Well, first of all, I want to just take a look at this, because I think that, this is a rather interesting feature of the price with regards to this regression band. If we just take a trend line, so let's start from the top of this trend line and let's just extend it out. You'll see that this extends right through the top of every single market cycle. Okay, so let's extend it out here to, let's just say we head out to 2024. What does that tell us? I'm not going to sit here and say this is going to identify the, the next market cycle high, because it has in every other market cycle. But let's assume, let's just pretend here that this trend continues, because these bottoms have kind of held trend and these tops have held trend for 1, 2, 3, 4 market cycles now. In fact, it held this trend in both peaks of this market cycle. It held it right here in April of 2021, and then it held it again right here in November of 2021. So we at least have to consider the fact that up until now, this trend has been pretty solid. Now, what else can we do then? What else can we say about this? Well, let's assume that, our next market cycle peak happens somewhere around where it kind of has in these market cycles, right? We have to kind of think about where might a next market cycle peak occur? Where might the next bull run be at? And quite frankly, we don't know. So we'll just kind of estimate. We'll estimate based on looking at these prior cycles, and we'll just go peak to peak. It's the easiest way to do it. And so you can see there was about 910 days on this cycle here. This cycle was around 1,500 days. And, this cycle right here that we're in right now was about the same. If we just go to peak, it was around 1,400 days. So, let's just assume that from this peak, this happens somewhere out here around like 14. Let's just take an average of the 3 and call it 1,300 or something like that. So we'll just say like right here. So that would put us out here into somewhere in 2024, 2025, maybe 2026, if it really lasted a long time before the cycle went into another bull run. And let's see how far away that is from now. Well, that would be around another 800 days. So somewhere on the order of 2.5, up to 3 years or so. It could even potentially be less. So, it could be in a year. It could be any time, guys. I don't want to sit here and act like, because I'm drawing these dates out here, that this is when it's going to happen. That's not the implication here. We're just going to do a mental model of what might we expect a price peak to occur at if this trend continues that we've seen so far. And so, with this regression band that we have, we have the ability to forecast where this band will be at, and then we can look at this and sort of draw some conclusions. So we said about 800 days into the future. So what you do is you just come to your settings, and for the inputs, you just say, let's look 800 days in the future. All right. And this will draw for you 800 days out into the future. Okay. So we're just going to put a line right here. And now what is this doing essentially? So this will give us an estimate of where the lower band will be at in 800 days into the future. All right. So, we're talking 2025 at some point out in 2025. Where would this lower band be? And we can see that it would be at around $42,000. Okay. And remember, these upper bands are by far the most dubious out of all of these regression curves. The upper band is the most likely to be invalid at that point. So it's saying at this point around 255,000 is where you could expect Bitcoin to possibly be. But I put zero stock into these upper regression bands. The ones where I put the stock in is in these lower bands. These are by far the most accurate. This regression band right here, this lower regression band, and I showed this in the video when I released this chart. These two lower regression bands, you could have drawn those within the first year of Bitcoin's existence, and they're nearly identical to where they would be at right now if you were to draw them through the entire price history of Bitcoin. Okay, so the upper band, on the other hand, it would suggest, if you only used like the first two market cycles, it would suggest that the price of Bitcoin right now should be $1 million or $2 million, something crazy like that. So the upper bands are very dubious, and these lower bands, I think, are providing much higher signal. Now, what we can do then is, so we've said 800 days in the future, where might the price be if it held this trend? If as high as we were able to get was about right where, like right here. Okay. And we're going to take this, these are going to be very rough numbers here, but this tells us that the maximum price, as we've seen in the past, where it comes up and hits this upper level, the maximum price will be at around 3.5 times the lower regression band. Okay. And so where would that be? Well, we can just do a simple calculation then. So 3.5, and we'll just pull up the calculator. And we're saying 3.5 times, and this lower band tells us 43,253. So let's just do it. 43,250 times 3.5. And what's that telling us? 151,375. Okay, so that would put us somewhere right around at around 150, right there. That's where potentially, if this trend were to hold as it has in the first, second, third, and both of these peaks in this cycle, this trend is held, that would put us somewhere at around right there. Now, remember, we're estimating when this would occur, right? We don't know exactly when this cycle was going to occur. So let's look at some other dates. Let's say the next peak came much sooner. Let's say it came much sooner, and we can just simply do the same thing we just did. So we'll just take this line, we'll copy it. All right. And let's say that it was in about, early in 2024, or, halfway through 2024, right about there. Right. So then we might expect to get to around 4 times this lower band, and the lower band right here is at around 32K. That one's easier to do. That's about 128K. So that would put us somewhere at around right there. So if the cycle were to come sooner, if the next bull market were to come sooner, then it would put us there. I think those are very reasonable numbers. I think that, looking at the price of Bitcoin, where it's at right now, and, we're at 23K almost, and saying that where might we be in the next cycle, suggesting that we could be somewhere between 100, if the market cycle came super early, up to 150, or if it came much, much later, some higher number, approaching 200K. I think that is within the realm of possibility. Now, imagine this scenario. Suppose that, if you're so jaded by Bitcoin at this point, suppose that the SEC did come in and annihilated investment in all altcoins, right? They blew up a lot of these shit coins that people invest in that, quite frankly, they're just speculating on completely centralized junk coins that have, like I said, no features, no users, etc., other than the speculative investment feature. If they blew up all that, well, a lot of that capital may flow towards Bitcoin. And so that is how you could potentially see us reach some of these numbers or even higher. Maybe it breaks this trend. Now, personally, I'm probably in the camp that believes that we're probably not going to get a lot higher than some of these numbers. I think 100K up to around 150K is a very reasonable assessment for where Bitcoin may get in the next cycle. I'm never going to be that guy telling you that it's going to a million. I just don't think that's necessarily in the cards, and I think it would be very difficult for it to do that. Now, if we just come crashing down, we explode through this lower band, then we kind of need to reconsider everything that we're talking about here, and maybe some of these numbers are even invalid. But overall, I think there's some fair reasoning behind the fact that maybe we do hold this trend where we kind of crash down to this level, we hold this level, and then we start a slow ascent back up. I mean, once we got down towards this bottom here, let's just measure this out. We didn't get quite down to the bottom, but we got close to it. Once we started to get down there, you know, we were still another 700 days away before we actually got back up to the top. And if we just look at that, you know, that kind of puts us right in this range here. It puts us somewhere between the earlier estimate out to some of these later estimates. Okay, guys, so, you know, this is just one way or one tool that we have where we can analyze these markets and start to come up with some realistic and grounded price estimates for where a next market cycle peak could occur at. All right. Now, perhaps these are too bearish for you and you fall into the camp that says that, you know, we are going to 250K, we're going to 300K or more. Well, I think that scenario that I laid out where the SEC comes and kind of blows up a lot of the other altcoins, especially a lot of the altcoins that have absolutely no use and are nothing but, you know, vehicles in order to make the VCs money. I think if those were removed from the market, then the prices of Bitcoin and Ethereum could potentially go to much higher levels than we've seen in the past. Okay. So that's kind of how you could see us break above this trend. Although I do think that is ultimately going to be a rather difficult task. So if you guys were able to hopefully follow along with this, you know, we could discuss it in the Discord. If you have any questions on how to replicate what I'm doing here, you could drop some comments to me in the comment section or head over to the Discord. We talk about stuff like this on there all the time. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I'm glad to be back, and you know, you can expect a lot of things coming from me and the guys over at Upside Down Data in the coming days and weeks. The next video I make, I'm actually going to show the website and show what its features are and show you some of the cool things you can do with it. So until next time, as usual, see you.